Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. My name is Elizabeth Jones, and I am here to discuss Stage 1 of Understanding by Design, or UbD. Stage 1 focuses on identifying your desired results. So when we look at doing that, we have to consider the standards that we need to meet and create some objectives. And the objectives will revolve around what will be taught and in what order you want to teach it. When you review the scope of what you will teach and how you want to arrange that curriculum, you will find a lot of subject matter to use in your teaching. And it's important to prioritize the content you want to use and organize it in an order that makes sense. Investing the time to structure the course content helps when it comes to pinpoint your desired results. To determine those results, you can contemplate these questions. What do I want students to be able to know, understand, or accomplish at the end of this unit? And what enduring knowledge do I want learners to have at the end of this unit? We're going to jump into the template that I'm using with the unit overview, where you will briefly summarize the unit. The overview is also where you can take another look at the big idea of the unit and inject some inspiration into it. Next, we'll look into professional organizations for content. And this section is where we list professional organizations we found that have competencies, standards, or requirements that align with and offer support and credibility to the information provided in the unit we're going to teach. In this section, you will list the organization as well as the URL of the organization. For example, if you're teaching about nursing, you might reference the American Nurses Association standards and provide the URL to their scope and standards of practice. Now that you've found some standards and competencies from professional organizations, you can use them to build the content standards or desired competencies for your unit. This section is where you will list those standards. Keep in mind that while you must focus on meeting specific criteria, they are not the reason for the unit or the information you plan to provide. Here, you will list the standards you want to use, and then in the left code column, you will list them as C1, C2, C3 in order. The transfer section is where you will list what you want the learner to be able to perform in the long term when they're outside of a classroom setting. So back to the nursing standards. If the criteria are that nurses will practice medicine ethically, you can teach medical ethics and proper treatment of patients. Then in the transfer section, you would state how you want your nurses to use that information in practical application with their patients. You will number each transfer item as T1, T2, T3 in the left transfer code column. And then over to the right, you will list the competency codes that align with each transfer that you've listed. Now we'll dive into the meaning section, which is broken into essential questions and understandings. Meaning is the area of the content where learners start to connect with the information, and we'll start with the essential questions. Essential questions need to be open-ended questions that will stimulate thought and examine content to promote the transfer of learning, such as why is it important for nurses to treat patients ethically? These questions should make students dig in and have a discussion about them and maybe even argue a bit about the answers that they give. But they are not to be easy to answer questions or yes or no questions. The understanding section looks at what big idea understandings you want learners to absorb to be able to answer essential questions and also to be able to employ in the future. Are there any conclusions learners should make from the content? Are there any expected misunderstandings that we think students will have when they're learning this information? You will label each essential question in the left code column as Q1, Q2, Q3, etc., and the understandings as U1, U2, and U3. Then over to the right, you will list the competency codes that align with each essential question and understanding listed. Keep in mind that there does not need to be the same number of understandings as there are essential questions, because it would make sense that it might take a couple understandings to cover what an essential question might ask. Moving on to the last section of Stage 1, the acquisition section lists the knowledge and skills students will attain from this unit. The knowledge section will cover the straightforward facts and concepts students should learn and be able to recall, such as vocabulary, dates, names, locations, or how to add and subtract. The skills section describes the skills or proficiency learners will gain from this unit. So you will list the skills they will be able to demonstrate due to their participation in this unit. Number each knowledge code in the left code column as K1, K2, K3, etc., and each skill code as S1, S2, S3 in order. Then over to the right, you will list the competency codes that align with each knowledge and skill that you have listed. Again, you probably won't have the same number of knowledge items as you do skills, and that's just fine. That's all for the UBD Stage 1 template review. I hope this information was helpful. Thanks for joining me. Take care.